Everyone, this is Matt, Wiki Clean Air. Today we're going to be doing a hardline setup for the GTI. As you guys remember, I just recently bagged this, completed the three-part series of bagging the GTI. And I kind of just quickly slapped on sort of like a board with a 4-gallon tank, dual compressors, and the management. But now it's time to sort of make it more pretty, and I decided to do a hardline setup, wrap the board, and I decided to do a separate video in regards to how I'm going to be doing the setup. So the first things first, I remove the compressors. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be running a hardline setup from the compressors onto the tank. So the first thing you guys need to do is, if you want to remove the ladder lines, just as a tip, whenever you guys are working with the Viair 444s, these have NTCs on them. So the best thing to do is I use one of these torches, and I basically just heat it up for about maybe 10-15 seconds. And what that will do is it will loosen up the NTCs, and it will make it a lot easier to remove. You got to be very careful with these compressors and these fittings over here, because it's a very small casting. I'll show you in a second. See how easy it comes out now. But I'll show you guys in a second what I'm talking about. Let me just remove this. This should unscrew. Be careful, it's a little bit hot, obviously. So the best way to remove these is by heating them up. And as you guys can kind of see, there's sort of like dry powder of the NTCs, or the sealant that they use in order to seal these ladder lines on these compressors. So you have to heat it. You have to heat it for you to be able to remove it. I try not to remove the ladder lines from compressors, because you got to sort of be very careful when you're doing hard lines with these. And this one's off. Okay, there we go. Nice and clean. But where I'm getting at is, if you guys look inside, look how thin the casting is over here. Especially over here. There's literally maybe like 5 millimeters. On top is a little bit better, but on the bottom is 5 millimeters. So you guys can imagine, if you're shoving in a fitting in here, and you're putting in a lot of white goop, or you're putting in a lot of like sealant tape or anything like that, these have a tendency to crack over here. And then the hairline crack, oh, the zoom is a pain in the ass. This hairline crack has a tendency to go all the way through to the bottom of the actual head over here. And what ends up happening is they start leaking through the head. But this is another, leaking through the head. Normally they leak through here anyways. That's why these ladder lines have check valves, over here. But in this particular case, a lot of guys, when they're doing hardline setups, they don't realize that what they're doing is they're actually destroying these and making a crack in here. And they're getting all these leaks that they're not able to find where they're coming from. And they're literally coming from over here. So just be very careful when you guys work with these compressors. But the best way to remove that ladder line is through heat. So that's step 2. I'm able to separate it, and we'll go on to work some more in just a second. All right, so we recovered the board with suede-like fabric. Got this stuff from Fabricland. They have a whole bunch of different fabrics that you guys can use as covering. Well, if you live in Canada, obviously, right? You can go to Fabric and get a bunch of types of fabric. I like to use the suede kind of a feel to it. It's got a really cool kind of a texture to it, and it looks really nice inside the trunk. I guess better than the carpet. Some people use carpet to match it a little bit better, but this is what I like. Very simple, just wrapped around. Use some staples and staple it around, and it's nice and firm. Obviously, I pre-drill the holes. It's easier if you pre-drill the holes and do it before you recover it, because if you do cover it and then you start drilling the holes, you're gonna like rupture the material. You're gonna fold it down as you're kind of drilling it through. So I recommend always taking the board, putting everything over, pre-drilling the holes that you need for the tank, for everything that you need, so the holes are basically pre-drilled through. Let me try to find it. There's one here. It's easier to sort of cut out a hole that's already pre-drilled than actually drilling it through once you've recovered the fabric. So pre-drill the board first, and then we're just going to cut a nice little slit through it, put the bolts through, and then we'll mount the tank. All right, so I mounted the tank up, put the compressors. The compressors now have Hardline fittings installed in them. They're basically just brass dot rated compression fittings. They work really well. They're relatively cheap, and they'll work great. So I'm using a water trap because that's going to protect the flow from the tank into the manifold. I kind of did like a T over here of some sort to go around, because what that does is the manifolds that we use, they have a dual inlet of air. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to have a hard line going through here and then splitting into two hard lines going into the manifold. So it's going to look kind of cooler, but so far so good. This is it so far. It's just everything's kind of placed. Mind you, as I said, the holes for the tank were pre-drilled while I covered it with the suede fabric. So right away, some people can stop like that and that'll look pretty good. But we're gonna go a little bit further. We're gonna have some hard lines coming from here, probably all around the compressor, going around doing some kind of a cool pattern. I haven't figured out yet, because I'm waiting for some street elbows. Because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have the street elbows going in through these two ports, facing up, and I'm gonna have the check valves for the compressors going into the street elbows, and then I'm gonna go and have a compression fitting from the check valve, and it's going to go into the compressor. So that's probably most likely what's going to happen. So we're waiting for some parts, unless I come up with a different way, and we'll go to step 2 or 3 or 4, whatever we are right now. Okay, so change of plan. I just decided to go and use the check valves directly into the ports. I was going to use a 90 and elevate them up, but whatever. I was able to find these sort of male 90-degree compression fittings that are 1/4 inch NPT. So that will allow me to basically have the supply line for the compressor. So I'm going to figure out our line that probably will go around here, over here, twist, and then go into these. So we're going to connect the compressor. So the compressors are already prepped for the hard lines to be connected. The water trap supply, as well as the check valve going up here, is already prepared as well. So I just got to fabricate a mount bracket for the manifold, plumb up the manifold with some hard lines, and go right at it. So we're going to do that in just a minute. I got to weld up the bracket first and figure out how I'm going to sit it. Okay, so I have pretty much everything arranged. Now what I'm doing is I put in the compression fittings onto the manifold, so that's ready to go. Now I'm in the process of welding up a bracket. I always carry a stock of rods and flat bar and various things like that. It makes it easier for me to weld up brackets or anything that I need, or compressors or anything like that. It's always better if you can fabricate it yourself, because store-bought, well, you can't really buy brackets. I mean, I guess you could buy bracket kits, but I mean, I could do this anytime that I need, and that way I'm able to sort of like create the mounts that I want. And here's the mount that I'm going to use for the manifold. I'm just in the process of welding it up. I really like using these little magnets. Make things a lot easier. You know, a lot of people have a welding table, but what I did is I got a surface like that I got from a metal supermarket. It's a really nice sort of a table. This is what I use as my grounding point, and it just works. Super simple, and I can do it kind of anywhere. If I want to have it elevated on the surface, I can put it on a table, and that's pretty much what I use for my welding surface. So I'm in the process of just welding this little thing up, and then I'm going to send it up, and I'm going to spray paint it black, and that will give me a nice custom mount for the manifold that I'm able to put in front of the tank, and that way I'm able to finally figure out how I'm going to run the lines, run the hard lines, and then call it a day. But these little guys are a savior. These little, you can buy a kit of these little magnets. A lot of guys use them. A lot of welding guys use them. I've been using them for about a year now, and what's really cool is you're able to get different angles and different things that you want, and you're able to sort of put two things together, which is, as you guys can see, I'm doing on the actual mount. So I'm going to do a thorough sort of like a video one day about what kind of tools I kind of use and what I use around the shop, and hopefully this will help you guys out. But so far so good. We're going to put this thing together and call it a day. Yeah, so nothing crazy. Lower plate, an angled, you know, nothing too wild, but it's perfect, just enough for me to support it. So I can put it over here. I'm gonna spray paint it now black, so that way I have a nice, obviously this isn't straight, but something like that. So I have a nice way to sort of put the manifold over, and then I can do the hard lines. And so far it's shaping up really nice, really good. Let me spray paint this and get that up and running.